Ladies, gents, welcome back to the shop. This is Handy Andy, and today we are actually going to be changing oil in a 2016 Hyundai Equus. This is going to apply to most vehicles and more modern vehicles today with our cartridge type oil filter. But if you have any sort of car, it's going to be a very similar process and a very quick process. There's not a lot of thought going into this. Today I'll be filming in my shop. Just for the sake of filming. However, you can do this in your garage at home with just common hand tools, and I'll show you how. Let's go fix it.
And then the tooling you're going to need for this job is actually very simple. So what you're going to need to take out the belly pan is this 10mm socket with a ratchet. I always like having an extension because I don't like busting my knuckles on shit. Then, for the oil drain bowl, you're going to need a 17mm socket on a ratchet. Something big and chunky to where you can put a lot of torque on it, because sometimes those oil drain pan bolts are stuck on there. For the O-ring on the oil filter housing, you're going to need like a small screwdriver or something like a hose pick or something like this, where you can just get under it and then twist it out as you please. And then for the oil filter housing, you're going to need this really big gal. She's 1 1/16, and she'll fit just on the top of that oil filter housing, and I'll let you twist it out. And that's all you'll need, other than a couple towels and a drain pan. That's all the tools you're going to need to do this job.
And if you're anything like me, you're kind of wondering why you need to do this in the first place. Oil itself has 4 properties that are very beneficial for engines. They're cooling, cleaning, protecting from corrosion, and obviously lubricating the moving parts. Without oil, your engine would soon seize up. Now, if you don't own a BMW, there's oil already in your engine. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why do I need to change it so often? It's expensive, my car seems fine if I go a few hundred miles over it. And you're absolutely right. Your car will last for a while on a single oil change. However, the damage you do is irreversible. Now, while your engine's running, there's a lot of metal parts rubbing really close together that are floating on an oil film. And the first thing oil does is lubricates that.
And the second thing your oil does is actually cools your engine. There is, in most modern vehicles, a coolant to oil interface where the coolant actually takes heat away from the oil.
So now that we know it cools the engine as well, you also have to know it also protects the engine during dry startups and protects it from rust and corrosion. Now, one of the more important features about oil is its ability to suspend particles within itself. It's called a suspension. And why this is important is because when your engine is running, all those little bits of metal that shear off, rubbing metal on metal, it contaminates your oil, and if they build up in any sort of area, that'll be bad for you. But because oil suspends it and captures it in the oil filter, it actually cleans the engine as you go. So it's always important to get a very high quality oil.
Now, in the case of this Equus here, with my high beams on, we actually have to do a little bit of access granting. Reason being, our oil filter is right directly above us, but that's not an oil filter I see. So, this is an underbelly panel. What you're gonna have to do is remove every single 10mm bolt on the underside. It's very easy. It's just a little bit of a time-consuming process. And then you have one of these little fake bolts. They're little thumb bolts. You can just twist them off. Alrighty, so we're oriented in the front of the car. Take your little 10mm ratchet and just go to town on all these little bolts.
Alrighty, once you removed every single bolt to the belly pan, you'll actually just pull it down very gently. So once you do this, it's easy to just slide it out of the way and expose the bottom of the engine.
Little tip, and just the tip, mind you, it's way easier to keep everything well organized. These are all the same bolt, and so I put them all on a line. If you have any other different sizes to different components, you could put them in a different spot. One of my favorite techniques is to actually use cardboard. You can stick them in the cardboard, label them, and they stay on the piece of cardboard until you need them again. Just a tip, mind you. Alrighty, now that we have the bottom belly pan off, we actually see the bottom of the engine, and wouldn't you know it, the oil filter's right here. You can tell it's a cartridge style just by the way you have to remove that. There's an internal cartridge in there, and this is your engine oil pan. This is the bolt you actually have to remove to get the oil out. Now all we do from here is we're actually going to take our 17mm socket with our ratchet. We're actually going to take this bolt out. First you want to break the torque on the bolt lefty-loosey. Sometimes they're a little hard on there. That works. Grab your oil collection device. You can use an oil pan at home. Today I'm using this little barrel that's in my shop. And then once you've broke the torque, you could actually take it off quite easily. There's going to be a point at which the bolt will actually twist out by hand, and this is a very important part.
And once you've gotten to the phase where you can twist it out and then the bolt is actually wiggling back and forth in its own threading, this is when you can take it out. You never want to be directly under this oil stream. It can splash and it's fairly hot. You definitely don't want that on your face at any point in time. Now, once your oil has stopped draining, you could actually put your oil drain bolt back. Make sure you include another washer on your drain bolt. Get it hand started at first. And then by hand, run it down as far as you can, and this is going to minimize the chance of cross-threading. What cross-threading is if you go against the grain and completely mess up your oil pan, and then you're going to have to buy a new one, or do some cool other tricks to try and save yourself $200 to $300 these things cost. And so, once you've ran it down with your hand, you could actually take your 17mm socket with a ratchet and then tighten it. You want it snug, you don't want it too tight.
Now, once you've completely snugged this down, you're going to want to wipe all the little bit of oil that you may have on this thing. Just keeps it nice and tidy, and if for some odd reason that oil goes and hits a hot component, you're not going to be smelling oil burning in your cabin. Next up is our oil filter. It's the cartridge type located in this housing, and usually they're fixed to the oil coolant interface to cool the oil. Let's get the tool for that. Now, from here, in order to get to the oil filter, we're going to need our 1 1/16 wrench. We're going to slip it over the nut. This little piece right here. Get it on, and then give it a good twist, like so. So we're getting to the point where the O-ring is going to slip past the housing and we're going to start leaking. Make sure you have your collection pan ready. Looks like it's at the point where I can start undoing it by hand. Groovy. And you can see the oil in the housing is starting to drain out. Be very careful, again, you don't want to be under this while it's draining. And while it's draining, you can slightly pull it out, let the rest drain out of the housing. And then you could slowly pull the cartridge out, and there she is. That is a used oil filter cartridge. Let's change it out. Alright, now that we have the oil filter out of the housing, we can actually take some time to inspect this used cartridge. Your oil is going to tell you a lot about the health of your engine. For instance, if coolant or water is actually getting in your oil, your filter is gonna have these like really chunky, boogery, it's kind of like a frothed milk, and it's just gonna be everywhere. That's how you know you're getting coolant or water in your oil. And if it smells like really bad like gasoline, you might have a blow-by issue with your piston rings, or if you're a rotor head like me, your apex seals and oil seals. So right now is the perfect time to just take a quick gander at what's going on. But this one looks great. Looks a little bit rough, maybe hasn't been changed in a while. This is a new car to me. But yeah, let's get the new one in. For this particular Equus, we're looking for a PG 5848F. And let's get it in. So, you're gonna have these holes, right? And there's actually a little crown at the bottom of this oil filter. All you do is you push it on, and then that's all she wrote. And so with these particular cartridge type filters, you're gonna have an O-ring right here. This little rubber ring is actually what's responsible for making sure the oil from inside the cartridge doesn't end up outside the cartridge. And then most oil filters come with a brand new O-ring. Don't forget to change that out. Alrighty, and the way you get this O-ring off, you can use like a really tiny screwdriver or what have you. I like to use this pick only because it has an L shape at the end that allows me to get under it and then slide it off. Try not to spill oil everywhere like I just did though, because that is no fun to clean. So now all we do, we take our other seal out of the package, inspect it, make sure there's no cracks, burrs, anything that would stop this from doing its job. We slide it over the threading. It's going to stretch just a bit. And then see that groove that the old O-ring came out of? You want it to set in that same groove. Because if you have it on the threading, it's not going to exactly go back on with the greatest of ease. Alright, let's go throw it back in the car. And here we are back at the oil filter housing. We've got our brand new oil filter. All you do is gently slide it in and then start threading. It'll actually seat itself by hand. Now, if you don't thread it straight on, it'll give a lot of resistance. You should definitely pay attention to that because that means you're cross-threading. And this is plastic, this is metal, bad day. And then once it stops threading in by hand, we got to take our BFR and then put it back on. And then again, you don't want to over tighten it, you just want it snug enough to do its job. This is kind of hard filming and doing this with one hand. It's like patting your head and rubbing your tummy. Alright, so now it's stopped. So the only way to go forward is to put a little bit of torque into it. So you want to go until it's very snug and then no more. If you do any more, remember, this is plastic, this is metal. If you force her, she ain't gonna like you.
Alrighty, now that we've put the oil filter back on with the new oil filter cartridge and our drain bolt to our oil pan back on, we can now install our belly pan. Let's go do it. There's a cool trick to doing this. You don't have to develop like a third hand just to get this thing back on. All you have to do is have one bolt, just one mind you, and then we're gonna find out where those bolt holes line up. There we go. And then all we're gonna do is put in by hand one bolt. You only have to get it threaded in a couple times, just enough to hold itself in the hole, and therefore it'll hold the belly pan up while you go get the rest of your bolts and then put them on. Putting on this belly pan is fairly simple. It's just the opposite of how you took it out. Just put all these little bolts back and then snug them down, and then she's on and she won't fall off. I personally like to thread all my bolts by hand first. Reason being, if you get 2 or 3 threads in there, and it's hanging very loose, especially in something that takes more than one bolt like this component here, you can actually adjust it on the fly as you're putting them in. So if you tighten it down too much on one bolt, it won't give you that adjustment period, and it'll just make your life a little bit harder. Just a tip, mind you. Alrighty. Now that the belly pan is on, we could finally lower the vehicle and put fresh oil in. Now if you're doing this in your driveway, you're going to be using a floor jack, which is a little bit easier. Just make sure you have jack stands to hold the car. That's a good failure point. If your hydraulic jack goes out and then now you have an obituary.
Now that we're on the ground, we're actually going to do the painstaking process of emptying every single little quart jug of oil we can into the car. We have a little funnel that's going to fit directly into the oil fill cap area. And you'll know it's the oil fill cap because it'll have a little oil symbol on it. And then it'll actually say what grade of oil you're taking. Today with this Equus, we're taking almost 8 quarts of 5W20 full synthetic. Alright, the painstaking process begins. Okay, now the painstaking process of adding oil is done. We, for the most part, are complete. If you have an older vehicle that does not have a service reminder, you are good from here. Just put your oil cap back on. Reinstall your engine cover. Now, before you go ahead and start it, let's just confirm our fix. We're gonna take the engine oil dipstick, wipe it off, get all that old stuff off. This will give us a good level. So there's gonna be 2 marks on your dipstick. There's gonna be one that says F, and there's gonna be a dimple next to it, and there's gonna be one that says L, and there's gonna be a dimple to it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know what that is, full and low. But all we're gonna do, take a quick measurement, shove that shit down there again, and then from here, we're gonna read where the oil is. And then you can't see it because it's clean oil and it's kind of hard to see on a silver thing like that, but we are full. So now we can proceed to start it safely. Now with your engine started and running, we're actually going to be looking for any sort of leaks. So you're going to go under your car, and don't mind that leak, that's actually water from the AC. But I don't see any oil dripping, so we've done a good job. Now, one important tool I didn't mention that you're going to need is the blessings of a shop animal. For instance, I have a shop cat named Toothless. I give her food in exchange for blessings, and then repairs go relatively easy for me. If I don't, anything can happen, it's, walking under a ladder, glass breaking shit, salt on the table, Bonus repair video. We are gonna actually go in depth how to get blessings from a shop cat. So, you take your standard food. And we look for the Kajit. Come on, Kajit. She will guide me to her offerings bowl. Yes, let's go. What a bitch. Come on, asshole, I'm trying to feed you. Am I late on the fucking mortgage payment? So, as you can see, she's a feral cat, meaning she's quite fucking ornery. Yes, I'm going as fast as I can, ma'am. Can you fucking calm down or help me out? So, step 1 to obtaining blessings from a shop cat. Introduce food into offerings bowl, and she will approach. The more the merrier. Alrighty, so I've spilled half of it, that's great. And then now she will feast, and then you'll feel the blessings come over your body. It's kind of a divine experience, honestly. Alrighty guys, that's it. It was simple as that. An oil change is a very quick process, and once you get the hang of it, it can be even quicker. All we did today, we took our shop tools, a blessings from a shop cat, and we put new oil in the vehicle, a new filter, and then now we can expect it to last that much longer. Again, I'm Handy Andy. Thank you for coming back to the shop. Tune in next time for another video.